formative learning experiences for themselves, also for their students. Okay, I think that's enough for my presentation today. We still have two great presenters, speakers after me. All right. So the last is our student perspective of valuable insights into developing effective teaching strategies. It is also important to consider how cultural factors influence language learning, something that's Bu Ade, our head of research center, gonna discuss later. So there is a crucial aspect as well, for effective teaching. So I would like to hand it over to Bu Ade. Without further ado, Monggo Bu Ade for the second session. Thank you very much for listening to my speak today. Any discussion or any question we can address later after all the speakers are done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Naning. And we move to the second presenter. Dear my beloved participants, online and offline, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed educators and fellow language enthusiasts. The second speaker is Ade Mulyana M. She is head of Research Center for Language, Literature, and Community. Her bachelor and master degree is from Pajajaran University, and now she is taking the doctoral program in Universitas Pajajaran, majoring in English linguistics. Her research interest is primarily in applied linguistics, language learning, and pragmatics. Her work experiences are as English lecturer at private university in Bandung and BIPA teacher, Indonesian language to foreign speakers. Her experience in BIPA teaching, like teaching BIPA at Bombay High School, Sydney, Australia, and Glenroy College, Melbourne, Australia. In BIPA teaching, she got funding from BRIN to do research on designing teaching material for expatriates by designing curriculum research decision, teaching media, and teaching methodology. The research mainly refers how cultural experience influence learners' perspective and education phenomena in Indonesian setting. Mom Ade will deliver her material about cross-cultural awareness in foreign language teaching. Are you ready, Mom?
Yes, thank you very much, Mbak Bese.
Time is yours, Mom Ade.
Right, thank you very much, Mbak Bese, for the opening. So it's just like great. I just hear my friend has shared about student voices, about what especially need by student and teacher. All right, so come up to my idea, sharing the idea related to cultural awareness. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yeah, of course, the Honorable Pak Willy still here. Yeah, this is my presentation related to teaching material, but also connected to the cultural perspective. My year's research on also experience could be I teach English and also I teach Indonesian for foreign speaker. So my research will be come up with two sides of perspective. So the title of my presentation related to cross-cultural awareness in foreign language teaching. So it could be English, Indonesian, SEFL, English as foreign language, and also Indonesian as foreign language. Before I come up with the idea, saying about what is cultural awareness, so might be I give a glance of what significantly talk about when we talk about foreign language teaching. So the teacher should know that the foreign teaching must be emphasized on language skill development, reading, writing, speaking, this kind of things, grammar and vocabulary, and also cultural insight, or we call cultural competence, and also communicative practices. And language skill development is also really improved by how students understand the culture of the source language and also how they can adapt in their conversation and how they can adapt in kind of doing the choice of word. So I would like to highlight what is cross-cultural awareness here. So if we take a look on the theory, cultural awareness is about the ability to recognize, understand, and adapt to cultural differences in communication style, such as social norms and value. Brian talked a lot about how we make a kind of classification that cultural awareness related to attitude, cognitive, and also behavior. And also we talk about cross-cultural awareness. We talk about the ability to communicate effectively and appropriately in diverse cultural context. Yeah, Krams also emphasized that. So seeing the two theory of understanding what is cultural awareness, we can take a look that teacher not only should understand linguistic, but also the teacher should foster awareness of how language is used in different social and cultural setting. So this is we call cross-cultural awareness. So language and culture, the two things that we have students master when they do understand about foreign language teaching. So the question come up, everybody say, what significance of cross-cultural awareness in foreign language teaching? There's a lot of theory about it. I know that the theory mostly supports what the finding about cross-cultural awareness. First might be we can take a look at culture, but enhancing communicative competence. And second, that it is very important, the most important, because when we talk about understanding culture, we do understand that it's going to be reducing misunderstanding and pragmatic. And that misunderstanding is sometimes come up when we do conduct something related to intercultural communication or cross-cultural communication. And the significance of foreign language teaching, also we have to understand that cross-cultural awareness is fostering intercultural sensitivity. We can see what Chen and Stroh lot of theory about it. Then what is something behind the culture? Yeah. We talk about the culture. Sometimes we do understand which part of the culture should be mastered, which part of the culture should be understood. And maybe most of you know about iceberg theory given by Freud. Then there is redefining by book in 2017 that when we talk about the culture, we talk about something to do with surface and deep down that. We can take a look here. If we take a look about the culture thing or the culture stuff, we can see that what coming in on the surface, what coming in, what the deep structure underneath. So when I meet somebody from English culture, I am Indonesian, then I find that I learn English. What I see, surface structure that I can see word, tonality, body language or gesture. That's because surface culture. So surface culture, we can just take a look on something related to something what we see, like food, dress, music, visual art, literature, language. Yeah. Sometimes that, okay, we promote the culture by seeing dances. We promote something to do about the food or our dress, but it is just surface of culture. But how about we do understand what the deep inside the culture is something, if there is the iceberg, might be like, we can see like treated of the iceberg. Sometimes we cannot see because something related to belief, value, biases, prejudice, experiences, fear, dream, feeling is something down under that. And sometimes we just find out about how we understand other culture, especially from Indonesian perspective and English perspective, for example. There are sometimes related concept like concept of time. Sometimes English speakers say Indonesian has rubber time. Sometimes Indonesian sometimes considered people like being late is like something acceptable, but actually this like kind of concept. Indonesian is kind of person very flexible in time. Might be the people stay in Jakarta. You can see how the traffic jam come up. Sometimes it's hard for us like to catch really punctual time. That's how the concept of time sometimes like, you know, really influence on the way people think about how people think about such thing, especially about the time. Concept of the beauty. concept of being polite, concept of friendship. That's really something related to what is the deep structure underneath that we call something to do with surface structure and underneath structure of the culture. And we can take a look at the theory from Freud, Halls, or we can take a look another theory from Ting Tommy, Hofstede, and also Oti, say that iceberg model and culture awareness related to three parts: conscious, pre-conscious, and unconscious. So something to do with conscious is something to do with observable culture element, language, dress, food, custom, as I mentioned earlier. And also pre-conscious, like how we do understand the norms, the value, share with social role and influence the behavior. Because understanding certain culture related to norms and value needs something deeper, something just knowing the surface of the culture. And something to do with unconscious, deep-seated belief, like how we do understand the taboos in Indonesian culture and taboos in English culture, for example, or other culture. This is something that what Hall and Hofstede talk about, that something to do with the culture, sometimes it's something to do with the culture context. Most of Western is called as high context culture, and most of Asian we call is most of Western is low context culture, but most of Asians say that high context culture. So we can take a look the two sides, the two differences between both of the theory come up with the idea that shaping intercultural interaction. And we can see here, we can take a look about, come up with the question, what the key point about cross-cultural awareness in foreign language teaching? So we can, I myself think about that there is a kind of things, element that related to cross-cultural awareness. First, about integration of culture and language. Second, about cultural sensitivity. The third, about critical thinking, cultural empathy, practical application, and dealing with the classroom. Of course, because we are talking about classroom discourse, we talk about teacher training and also curriculum design. First, integration culture and language. I have some years to do kind of research about integration culture and language. And my research related to English as a foreign language and Indonesian as foreign language. And find to the idea that the understanding about the integration of language culture is something to do with the cultural knowledge. And we take a look about how we understand the politeness concept and how we know the tradition. For example, being polite in English culture gonna be different from being polite in Indonesian culture, for example. In English culture, people will say, in the morning, you'll say, good morning, everyone. Or they say, how are you? And saying, how are you? In Indonesian culture, sometimes it's about confusing, because Indonesian is hardly address somebody by saying, how are you all the time? How are you is the term we use when we don't meet somebody in a very long time. And something inside the culture, actually, when we talk how are you in English culture, they say that how are you is not talking about what's your condition, whether you are sick, why you're not sick, or something like that. But how are you is saying like small talk, something like saying hi. And sometimes that's not really understand by Indonesian students. When they say how are you, they say, oh, how are you? Why my teacher always how are you all the time? I'm fine. I'm fine all the time. And come up to another vice versa. When English people study Indonesian language as a foreign speaker, they are also confused when they are asking about where are you going? Or where did you go? Where are you going in? Where did you go? In Indonesian culture, it's kind of hospitality concept. So I think the both sides of the culture should understand that by understanding cross-cultural understanding, I guess that everybody has kind of knowledge that certain expression also shows certain message of culture concept. Might be we can give the student about the understanding about how the English people say hospitality by saying, how are you? You just say just fine. Instead that you are not fine, just fine. Yeah, it's in English culture. Indonesian also in vice versa, we say, how are you? Oh, where did you go? Or might be you come up to Chinese culture, they say, have you eaten yet? This is kind of, we call concept of hospitality. This is very the beginning of understanding culture, but it is very great opportunity for you to open the conversation when you know how kind of the concept in certain culture. Because when you know about integration of culture and language, we come up with the idea by understanding about cultural sensitivity. Chen and Srosa has made a lot, a scheme about what we call about cultural sensitivity, like how self-esteem, self-monitoring, open-minded, empathy, interaction, involvement, non-judgmental attitude. Yeah. And I think it's come up with the idea of understanding the concept of certain culture, like how is saying something very polite in English by saying good morning, or how English people opening the conversation by saying related to weather, for example. Most of English culture say mentioning the weather is a part of being polite, or is a part of being hospitality. Like saying, okay, I say cold, isn't it? Yeah. But this kind of terminology sometimes does not really understand by Indonesian culture. So I think by doing cross-culture awareness, teacher can make formulation what something common in English culture and something common in your culture. So I think it is we call cross-culture awareness. So might be like concept of time, concept of belief, work ethic, hospitality, cleanness, and also honorific things. Then we call another thing related to culture, also with by culture sensitivity, we do understand about cultural empathy. This is what we call cultural empathy. Is about the ability to understand, okay, something to do with the cultural perspective from individual within individual perspective. For example, innocent learner sometimes find difficult when they have to do with directness of English people, for example. Yeah. Because it is really influenced by the background of the context culture. Hall and Hofstede mentioned that Indonesian mostly using high context culture. If we talk, we do something like elaborated round about. Yeah, this is what we do in Indonesian culture. But in English culture, my people more direct. Yeah. Being direct is something reflected of low context culture. And the third thing, being direct or indirect culture, I think it can be understood when teacher give kind of information to the student that there are two significant differences between English culture and Indonesian culture, because the culture shaped by kind of high context culture, like we call high context culture and also low context culture, that what we call Hall and Hofstede talk. Yeah, and also like social hierarchy in Indonesian culture. Sometimes we have kind of when you direct people addressing title by using Bapak or using Ibu. Like I say to Pak Willy, for example, even I say in English, I will say Pak Willy instead of saying Mr. Willy, because Pak Willy is something much more polite in my language instead of saying Mr. The choice of word also considered that a part of understanding the culture. Yeah. Next, okay, the next we talk about also we need the critical thinking. Critical thinking about the ability to analyze, evaluate, and synthesize linguistic and cultural information. My year study about cross-culture adaptation from I do research from Anglosphere perspective. Anglosphere meaning that from English spoken countries and also Korean. I found out that in Korean culture, Korean who study Indonesian, because my work also teaching Indonesian for foreign speaker and one of them for Korean. I found out three things in Koreans. Sometimes they do misunderstand we misunderstood about hierarchy and social status, and also social harmony, and also high contact communication. For example, in Indonesian, there's a lot of titles, Mbak, Mas, yeah, okay, and also Bapak, Ibu, whatsoever. And also sometimes that using social harmony, like we do a lot of small talk sometimes, like mau kemana, dari mana, whatsoever. And sometimes do not really understand by the foreign culture. So what the most important for us to do is we formulate the differences, then we compare between one culture to another culture. Yeah. Okay, then so the next is the most important thing is about practical application. So how we applied the culture, the language, the term of culture, saying in the classroom, for example, so we can do some activities like role playing, discussion, or do some project. And related to teacher, related to how we give kind of material about cross-cultural understanding. So we can facilitate discussions about on cross-cultural differences and similarities. So we can say like, what is the difference between Indonesian culture and Indonesian culture and English culture, for example. So the student can understand what the difference between the two cultures. Like most of the students from English culture sometimes about surprised about how Indonesians work ethic. It's much more using family relationship instead of individual. Indonesian is more collective in work environment instead of being individual. So the thing is, when something to do, when there is kind of difference between two cultures, what we have to make state is we have to make kind of pattern, kind of list that what is something accepted in one culture and something is not really accepted in other culture. Then it's about curriculum design. So I think that the curriculum design is very important because it's kind of component that culture address awareness, like what is something about lesson or culture norms, about tradition and social practices. A curriculum also will guide us to find out how is the material will be delivered to the student and what kind of material come up with every level of their study. So related to curriculum design with culture exploration related to listening, reading, and writing, you can take a look at that is a part of is the central part of language learning. So like how is cultural exploration, like understanding cultural language, or you can say about intercultural communication, about how the ability to navigate cultural differences in conversation, pragmatic competence, how using appropriate communication strategy, and also we gave the material something to do with cultural knowledge about studying global culture case, study storytelling. Yeah, it's just like expected outcome. Of course, we do hope that the outcome of the teaching also really will come up with awareness of diverse worldwide view. And when we design the curriculum, we have also make kind of consideration to make reflection and awareness. That's very important part when we make untuk for cultural evaluation, like what kind of journal, debate, interview with native speaker. So the expected outcome, of course, we come up with self-awareness and intercultural sensitivity. So I think this is very practical thing when you do the classroom activities, like how we make the student understand how to make the student realize about cross-culture understanding or cultural awareness. We can take a look like what kind of activities come up. For example, case study, role playing, debate, discussion, virtual exchanges, film, media, or reflection journal. You can take a look here. Something might be, you can see, for example, when we do make like scenarios in role play, we can take a look like acting out scenario, how you do formal or informal greeting, how we do discussing on cultural topics such as gender, role, education, and work ethic. Yeah. I might come up with the idea how interact with English foreign language learners from different countries through online platform. So I think we can do a lot of things in kind of in global world. You can see like doing offline or doing online things. And reflective journal is also one thing might be very effective because my research about Korean expatriate perspective on Indonesian culture, I give the student like how to write reflective journal. The reflective journal can also show how they understand the cross culture between the culture they are learning and their own culture. So writing about cultural experience and personal learning is one key to understand the culture appropriately. Well, so it could be the methodology, come up with the culture. You can use like performance-based assessment, like doing presentation or on culture topic, or come up with the intercultural project. Yeah, we come up with the research on communication style in different cultures. Sometimes I do also sometimes related to self-reflection essay on cross cultures experiences. Yeah, like what come up in your culture, what difference of the culture is about the food, the dress, the concept, or something to do with you can highlight it from different culture. And might be very important as well when we talk about peer and teacher feedback on culture interaction skill. So we can use any kind of methodology by giving the perception about cross-cultural encounters in foreign language teaching. I think that's the conclusion about the presentation. Cross-cultural awareness in foreign language teaching, especially intended for enhancing learners' ability to communicate effectively and respectfully in multicultural setting. The second is preparing learners to engage in global discourse while fostering cultural sensitivity and open-minded. And one thing I also always highlighted that understanding cultural concept help navigate cross-cultural interaction, avoiding misunderstanding, and fostering intercultural communication. That's the key of cross-cultural foreign language teaching. I guess that's the whole idea about how to understand how to make students understand about the different culture and come up or end up with cross-cultural encounters. So the next thing might be we can take a look how the student understand about understand about other culture, but knowing from their perspective from their own culture and other culture. I think that's the presentation. Thank you very much. I hope that might be give insight about cross-cultural awareness. And later, if there is a question, will be come up with Q&A, question answer question. Thank you very much. Okay, Mbak Besi, that's ended of my presentation. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Mom Ade. And we move to the third presenter.
Terima kasih, Pak.
The main speaker of our webinar today. But before going to present his material, let me introduce who is Mr. Willy. And without leaving our cultural awareness of Indonesia, Pak Willy Renandian. Okay, Dr. Willy A. Renandia is a John Senior Fellow, ELL Department, National Institute of Education, Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. Bachelor from Sanata Dharma University, and also for Master of Art from Sanata Dharma University, and also MA from University of Hawaii, Manoa, USA, and at least a PhD, Educational Psychology from University of Wisconsin-Madison, USA. Her expertise in teaching and research interest on language learning pedagogy, reading and writing pedagogy, extensive reading and listening, comprehension theories and second language acquisition, instructional strategies in multicultural societies, and teaching English as an international language. We do believe our main speaker today, Dr. Willy Erinandia, will lay the groundwork by examining the current state of English proficiency in Indonesia, exploring the essential levels and types of proficiency needed for effective teaching, and proposing strategies for improvement. Mr. Willy, time is used to refer your material about the future of foreign language teaching, raising the proficiency bar.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Ibu Bessie and Ibu Ade. Thank you so much for the excellent presentation, and Ibu Nani, very insightful presentation as well. Bapak Ibu, ladies and gentlemen, today I'll be focusing on proficiency, how we can help our teachers become more proficient, and in that way, I think there is a more than a higher chance that they might just be able to design and to deliver and to assess language proficiency of the students. But before I begin, I would like to call upon some of the people in the audience whom I've been working with. Pak Kom, are you still there? And also Pak Buyung from British Council. I think these are people who have been working in this area. Pak Kom, are you still there?
Hello, Pak William, still here.
There you go. He is still there. Pak Buyung. And also a student.
Morning, Pak Willy and colleagues.
Oh, hi, Pak Buyung. Yes, good to see you. Yes, let me just begin my presentation this morning. The presentation that I'm giving today is based partly on a journal article that I did some years back together with Pak Fuad from UPI Bandung and also Pak Joko Nurkamto, ONS Surakarta. The QR code is there. Please feel free to download it. Or if you don't have access to to your mobile phone at the moment, you can always go to the site, to the journal site, Journal of Asia TEFL, and I think you can download the paper as well. And at the end of my presentation, I will give you a shorter version of this of the discussion on the role of proficiency for English language teachers in Indonesia and also in other places as well. I will be discussing 4 points, and I want you to focus on these 4 points together with me. I'll be discussing the what, a very brief definition of what proficiency is all about. And number 2, I'll be discussing on why proficiency is important for language teachers in their teaching and why teachers should eventually be able to help their students develop and grow their language proficiency. And I have 2 hows here. The first how is how to improve proficiency. I will share with you a big secret so that you can share the secret with your students as well, how to improve proficiency. And finally, how to do research in the area of teacher proficiency or student proficiency development. Jadi ada 4 ya, Bapak Ibu sekalian. The what, the why, the how, the first how, and the second how today. Let's begin the first one. What is proficiency? I'm not going to give you a very long definition. My definition will be very, very short and straightforward. Now, here is my definition of proficiency. The ability to use language, in this case, English, or if you're teaching Japanese, that would be Japanese, or if you're teaching Korean, that would be Korean, to use language for a variety of social and academic purposes. Now, here are some examples. Yeah, telling a story, telling a funny story in a social context. When you are having lunch with your friends or with your colleagues, you can, tell a story in whatever language that you have. I think that shows your ability to recount, to tell a story. Sharing a piece of good news is another example of how language is used for social purposes. Giving a compliment is another example. For academic purposes, I think we can see some examples here. Writing a research report, for example, after you've done your research, you may want to put together an academic piece of paper that you might want to send to a journal for publications. Giving a speech I think that is also another example of somebody who has a good proficiency in the language. Teaching English in English. I think this is very important for teachers in Indonesia and also elsewhere, that teachers should use English when they teach English most of the time. Maybe not 100%, but maybe 80% of the time or 85% of the time, but definitely not below 50% of the time. Yeah, so that is what proficiency is all about. Very brief. Yeah. The next question about proficiency is, how do we know whether somebody has the required proficiency? As a language teacher, I think we need to have an idea of what it means to be proficient. How do we know that our students are proficient enough in the language that they are learning? There are 4 things here that I want to share with you, 4 indicators or 4 criteria if you like. The first one has to do with accuracy. Yeah, in a very simple language, accuracy has to do with whether and to what extent students can use English correctly, can produce sentences correctly, can tell a story without any pronunciation mistakes or with minimal grammatical mistakes. So accuracy has to do with correctness, betul atau salah begitu ya. That's accuracy. Yeah, it has to do with pronunciation, acquisition of pronunciation, vocabulary, and knowledge and grammar. Fluency is another important indicator. Now, this has to do with whether and to what extent you can do things quickly, easily, and spontaneously, yeah, without stopping too often. When you're having a conversation with Bu Naning, for example, I think you want to make sure that you're able to maintain the flow of the conversation. We don't want to stop and say, Bu Naning, that is not very fluent, right? So that's the second indicator. The third indicator is complexity. Complexity here simply refers to the extent to which students or you are able to showcase, to demonstrate your ability not to just use the same words again and again, but to use a wider range of vocabulary, wider range of grammatical structures, and things like that. I think that is one important indicator of somebody who is proficient in the language. If I were to use a very simple word to describe Ibu Naning, for example, using the word nice. Bu Naning is nice, her research is nice, and she is a nice person, she has a nice family. It's just nice, nice, nice. Nothing wrong with that, but that shows that my control, my command of the language is not very strong, because I'm just using the same word again and again to describe somebody, yeah? And the last one, appropriacy, essentially has to do with what Ibu Ade has, just shared with you about the importance of understanding the social, rules, the social dimensions of language use, the cultural aspect of language use. Yeah, somebody may be speaking the language very well, but the impact on the listener may be something like, that person is very good speaker, but he is not nice. I mean, he is rude, maybe. He is too abrupt. Maybe he is too direct and things like that. Yeah, Ibu Ade, have you eaten yet, Ibu Ade? Sudah makan? That was the example that she gave earlier on. You don't ask that question, yeah, in Indonesia. You don't usually ask that question. Instead, you ask things like, mau kemana begitu is more polite in the Indonesian context. Yeah. Okay. So first off, we talk about a very brief definition of proficiency. And second, the criteria, the indicators that we use as a basis for determining whether your students are of low proficiency, intermediate proficiency, or a high level of proficiency. Okay. The next one is this. I think we also need to be aware of the standards that people are using, the assessment, the test, proficiency test that people are using in different parts of the world, including in Indonesia. Now, interestingly, these 2 tests, IELTS and TOEFL, are widely used, and very often not for the right reason, but for the wrong reasons. IELTS and TOEFL are good tests, but they are intended for specific purposes. For those people who want to study overseas, in which Bahasa Inggris is the language of instruction, the language of teaching. So if you were to use this test to assess English language teachers in Indonesia, kayaknya kurang pas begitu. Ya, seorang pegawai negeri misalnya yang harus mengambil tes TOEFL untuk kenaikan pangkat for their promotion and things like that, I don't think that's the best measure to find out whether that person actually has the proficiency in bahasa Inggris. Yeah, so keep in mind that different tests are designed for different purposes and for different audiences. What about us teaching bahasa, mengajar bahasa, the kind of assessment that is useful for those people teaching bahasa Inggris, teaching bahasa Jepang, teaching any other languages? I think there's a strong agreement these days. There's a big consensus that CEFR is a much better, more relevant indicator, measure of somebody's ability in the language that they're learning or in the language that they're using. This is just an example of the CEFR scale and the requirements for students and also for people teaching in the school context. Yeah, the target for most people in Malaysia. Puvana, are you still there? Puvana?
I am, sir.
Yes, Puvana. Is this accurate about Malaysia, Puvana?
That's correct, sir.
That's correct, yeah?
Yep.
So yes, so people in Malaysia, students and teachers and, people studying to become teachers, I think they're expected to acquire a certain level of English language proficiency before they graduate, before they finish their education. Okay. Now the question is this. This is one big question that we all need to address. Yeah, English teachers, I don't have data for English students, but for English teachers, I have some data that I want to share with you. For English teachers in Indonesia, I think the desired level of proficiency, the expected level of proficiency, menurut peraturan Kementerian Pendidikan, Bu Naning, please correct me if I'm wrong, B2 atau C1 ya, Bu ya? Betul ya, Bu ya?
I think right, yeah. B2 ya.
Ya, B2 atau B1
Yeah.
gitu ya.
Yeah.
B2 atau C1 begitu.
Yeah.
Yeah. But one piece of data that I have access to, which I'm going to show you in the next slide, shows something like this. Ini data dari Pearson Test, namanya Versant. Data ini sudah dimiliki oleh Kementerian Pendidikan di Indonesia. Nah, datanya seperti ini nih. This is what it looks like. Data ini diambil dari sampel lebih dari 10.000 guru bahasa Inggris from different provinces in Indonesia. Yeah, the picture is not very flattering. The picture is something for us to be concerned with. Ya, Bu Ade bisa melihat ya, Bu Ade ya. Ibu Naning bisa melihat. Ya,
Yes,
72% of the teachers who took the test administered by Pearson, and Pearson was commissioned, itu diberi tugas oleh kementerian untuk memberikan tes ini, dan mayoritas dari guru di Indonesia yang 15.000, sekitar 12.000 begitu, itu kemampuan berbahasa Inggrisnya mayoritas di level A2 begitu. Mas Buyung?
Beginner level.
Mas Buyung still there? Mas Buyung has been working for the British Council for a long time. I think he can confirm. Perhaps Mas Buyung is not there. Okay. But this is data, yeah? It doesn't mean that all teachers are at the A2 level. There are people who are at the B1.
Willy.
Yes, Pak
This is
Buyung.
also aligned with the just launch.
Yes, Pak Buyung is from the British Council, and British Council has also been doing a lot of tests for teachers, and this is pretty much what it looks like. So to me, this is a major concern. I think BRIN is in a very good position to spend a bit more time and effort trying to understand why this is a problem and how bring together its MOE, Indonesia can help teachers develop a higher level of proficiency. Minimal B1 begitu loh. Kalau bisa B2 begitu. Kalau A2 kurang deh. Ya Mbak Apri. Mbak Apri betul ya Mbak ya? Mbak Apri? Mbak Apri sedih atau gembira ini kok senyumnya cerah sekali?
For me, this is a new
Yes.
knowledge. Also, my
Yes.
background is not from language.
Okay, but you speak much better English than a lot of the people here on the data.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes. So this is a question. If you are an English language teachers in the audience, Bapak Ibu yang menjadi guru bahasa Inggris, silahkan bertanya, silahkan berefleksi. Where are you in terms of your proficiency? Yeah, are you in the B1 range, B2, C1, C2 dan sebagainya? Okay. Okay. So I've just gone through the first 2 points in my presentation. The first one is what is proficiency? The second one is why, sorry. The second one is going to be why proficiency is important. Alasannya apa sih proficiency? Kenapa important? I think one reason, I think Bu Naning mentioned this earlier on, an effective teacher usually hampir dipastikan an effective teacher, a good teacher hampir bisa dipastikan pasti punya kemampuan bahasa Inggris yang mumpuni, yang memadai. Tidak seperti kolom misalnya native speaker gitu, tidak, tapi minimal B2 atau C1. Now, here are some other reasons why proficiency is important. Yeah. Having a good proficiency in the language that you're teaching is an important part of your professional knowledge and professional identity. Identitas seorang profesi, seorang yang berprofesi sebagai guru bahasa. Itu salah satu alasan kenapa proficiency dalam bahasa yang diajarkan itu begitu penting. Yeah. So a teacher, an effective teacher must have a fairly good proficiency in the language. They also have to know about the pedagogical, approaches that are suitable for their students. I think Bu Naning mentioned about innovative, pedagogies and things like that. They also need to know about a little bit about the language itself, the pragmatics, the cultural dimensions, the grammar, and all that. Yeah. So there you go. Proficiency, I think, is an important consideration, is an important dimension that makes up what it means for somebody to be considered, to be referred to as somebody who has a professional knowledge and somebody who has a very strong identity as a language educator. Begitu ya. If you're interested, if you're doing research in this area, I would like to refer you to a special issue on the role of language teacher proficiency. Ini diterbitkan di sebuah jurnal ya, di Asia yang sangat terkenal, namanya RLC Journal. Jadi, the whole issue is about proficiency and how important is proficiency for a teacher. Now, here are some of the benefits, some of the important aspects relating to teachers having a strong command of the language. Yeah. A proficient teacher is usually more confident in their teaching. Tidak ragu-ragu begitu. Yeah, they know what is good and they know what is not good. They know what is correct. They know what is important to include in their curriculum. They know how to select materials. They know, how to correct or how not to correct your students at any one time. Number two, a good teacher can provide a good model. I think we all know about that. Unless you yourself is a good speaker, I think it's difficult for you to tell your students, please learn to speak the language like me, for example. You can't do that unless you have developed a sufficient level of proficiency. Number three is an obvious thing. Teach English in English. If I were to ask you about your experience observing a lot of classrooms, Mbak Naning, do you think teachers in Indonesia use English most of the time or just some of the time.
I think most likely some of the times.
Some of the time, yeah. Some of the
Yes.
time is not bad, but I think we need to speak a bit more using English or using bahasa apapun yang sedang kita ajarkan, begitu. If you're using English only 25% of the time, then I think you're not doing a good job as a teacher, because one of the important jobs of a teacher is to provide a model, to provide language input to the students. Terus berikutnya, if you have a good proficiency in the language, I think you'll be able to provide more appropriate and more accurate feedback to your students. Itu jelas sekali ya. Saya khawatir mungkin ada guru yang karena kemampuannya pas-pasan, kadang-kadang itu membetulkan apa yang sudah betul, menyalahkan apa yang sudah betul, atau membetulkan apa yang salah begitu. Itu ya Manani ya. I think that can happen in some places. I think number 5 is self-explanatory, but number 6 to me is very important. Now, this is based on research that was done in New Zealand, that teachers who are more proficient in the language that they're teaching, they are in a much better position to make changes, to improvise when their lessons don't go very well. Yeah, in the middle of a lesson and you find that your students are sleepy, they're not very interested, then what a proficient language teacher can do is just to throw away their lesson and they can create a new lesson on the spot, basically, so that they can get the attention of the students in that particular lesson. Jadi kemampuan untuk berimprovisasi pada waktu when the lesson is not going well. I think that happens a lot to us, yeah? We have prepared a very good lesson, but when we start teaching, somehow things go wrong. The students are sleepy, the students are not interested, and things like that. Now, proficient teachers are more able to make changes right there in the middle of the lesson compared to the less proficient language teachers. Yeah. Itu alasan mengapa proficiency is important for a good language teacher. But the next question, which I'm sure that you also have in mind, is that apakah seorang guru, is it the case that a teacher, a language teacher who is very, very proficient, high level of proficiency in the language, C2 atau C3 atau native speakers misalnya, apakah itu berarti seorang guru itu menjadi seorang guru yang luar biasa, effective, insightful, and things like that? The answer, Ibu adik, apakah seorang guru yang sangat-sangat proficient dalam bahasa itu otomatis menjadi seorang guru yang luar biasa? The best teacher, a very good teacher. Please say no, Ibu.
I would like to. No, actually.
Yes, please say no.
Yes, no.
No, I think Bu Naning,
Yes, no.
shared
No.
with us.
Yes,
Yes,
and
a
no.
lot of things. So proficiency is not the only
Just
one.
one of them.
There are
Just
many
one of
other
them.
things.
Yeah.
But in certain context, today we are dealing with language teachers in Indonesia. I think we should give more credit to the importance of proficiency in the context of ELT in Indonesia. Yeah. So yes, generally speaking, proficiency doesn't translate to effective teaching. There are many other things. There are many other things. Yeah. But having said that, I think we need to make sure that our teachers have a certain level of proficiency, minimal B2 begitu, ya, atau C1. And then there are many other factors that begin to have an impact on your effectiveness in teaching. Now, these are things like, how you pitch your lesson. Are you pitching your lesson at the right level? The pacing of the lesson. Apakah terlalu cepat, terlalu lambat, or just nice? The engagement level of your teaching, whether or not you're able to engage your students most of the time. I think that is also extremely important. Class management. Yeah, if a teacher who doesn't know how to manage the class, for example, will end up having a class that is very noisy, that is very rowdy when the students are not listening to you. Personalization, I think Bu Naning also mentioned that early on, the ability to create lessons, tasks, activities that meet the needs of your students. Okay, so proficiency is not the only one. It is important, but it is not the only one. Okay, sudah selesai. The first one is about what is proficiency. The second one is about why proficiency is important. Okay, are you still with me so far? Okay, very good. The next one, if that is the case, that many teachers have yet to acquire a sufficient level of proficiency, what can we do? Yeah, what can BRIN and many other organizations in Indonesia, including teacher training institutions in Indonesia, what can they do to help the students or the teachers develop a high level of proficiency in the language that they are teaching? Okay, so that's the next point. Okay, remember this? I think I shared with you a definition early on that proficiency refers to our ability to use language for a variety of communicative purposes, for social communications, for academic communications, and things like that. Okay, so that's the thing that we want to develop, that we want to grow. Yeah, the question is how? How? What sort of approach will help our students, will help our teachers grow or develop their English language proficiency? Yeah. Broadly speaking, pada umumnya, secara gambaran besarnya, itu seperti ini. Ada dua approaches. Yang pertama adalah teaching English as knowledge. Yang kedua adalah teaching English as ability, or teaching language as ability. When you take on the first approach to language teaching, teaching language as knowledge, I think what you do is pretty much what many teachers are still doing in many places in the world, including in Indonesia. Di sini, pengetahuan bahasa, tata bahasa, vocabulary disampaikan, diajarkan secara linear, satu persatu, one at a time. Minggu ini present tense, misalnya begitu. Minggu depan past tense. Ya, Bu Apri masih ingat ya, waktu di SMP ya. Minggu depannya lagi past perfect tense begitu. Dan itu diajarkan dengan cara yang very explicit. Harus hafal nih. Kalau nggak hafal nanti nggak lulus. Begitu. That is teaching language as knowledge. On the other hand, teaching language as ability, itu the procedures are non-linear, tidak step by step, tidak satu persatu. Tapi it depends on what is important, what is meaningful, what is relevant, what is authentic. So the students may be learning the present tense, the past tense, and the present perfect tense together in one context, in one situation. So you're not teaching just one tense, for example, in a single lesson. Yeah. And what happens very often is that the knowledge that the students learn as a result of doing this, solving a problem, misalnya, adalah implicit knowledge of the language. Jadi apa itu namanya, kemampuan bahasanya itu berupa sesuatu yang intuitive, it's implicit, you have it, you know it, but you don't even know how to describe what you know to other people. Yeah, that is learning language as ability, bukan as knowledge. Dari dua ini kira-kira yang mestinya lebih bermanfaat yang mana ya? Begitu. Ibu Pufana ini juga mengerti bahasa Indonesia. Ibu Pufana, of the two approaches, which one contributes to students' ability?
Ability.
Yes, to communicate or to use the language for communication. Please say ability. Pufana?
Ability.
Yes, ability. So teaching language as ability, bukan teaching language as knowledge. If you ask me, in Indonesia, the emphasis, the focus itu boleh dikata 80% lebih itu kepada mengajarkan bahasa sebagai pengetahuan begitu, bukan sebagai kemampuan. Jadi kesalahannya di sana nih. Ya, ini harus dibetulin. I think Ibu Ade dan teman-teman di BRIN itu punya punya tugas yang sangat-sangat penting untuk memberitahukan kepada kementerian mungkin kepada guru-guru, diubah dong caranya mengajar begitu. Ya. Okay. Now here is a very good statement to help you understand the importance of implicit knowledge. Implicit knowledge itu tidak bisa diajarkan di kelas. Tidak bisa diajarkan dengan cara step by step, tidak bisa. And it is the implicit knowledge that is important, that contributes to your ability to speak, to understand, to write the language. Saya baca ya. The ability to produce language relatively easily for communicative purposes draws heavily on implicit knowledge, not on explicit knowledge. Explicit knowledge itu akan sangat menghambat pada waktu kita akan mengutarakan. When you try to express yourself in bahasa yang sedang kita pelajari, I think you'll have a hard time doing it because it will be very slow, because you'll be thinking too much about what to say and what not to say. Sulit sekali. So we should be going for the implicit knowledge, ya. Terus, what is the best way to improve language proficiency so that the students develop sufficient implicit knowledge of the language? Kira-kira, if I were to ask you what is the best way to do it?
Acquisition.
Yes, acquisition, yes. Caranya?
Extensive reading.
Yes, very good. There you go. Yes,
Input.
that's why, yes, the input thing. That's why for the past 30 years or so, I've been focusing a lot on the importance of including reading, listening in our teaching. Yeah, so that to me is the best way. Now, here are some important support from places, from case studies that I have seen. She is from Korea, and she was able to pick up a lot of language. She was very fluent in the language after she has spent doing a lot of extensive reading and extensive viewing as well. This girl is from Thailand. The same thing happened to her. She was very fluent when I met her some years back. Very, very fluent in the language. This is another boy from Vietnam. Vietnam, Thailand, Korea are very much like Indonesia, actually. Yeah, the majority of the kids, they don't speak English very well, but there are some, a small number who are very, very good. And this is simply because they spend a lot of time doing things on their own, reading, doing a lot of pleasure reading, doing a lot of pleasure viewing, and things like that. Ini dua orang guru dari Indonesia yang kemampuan bahasa Inggrisnya luar biasa bagusnya. Kemampuannya C2 atau mungkin C3. Ya, yang di sebelah kanan atas dari Sanata Dharma, yang di bawah dari Universitas Negeri Malang. Ya, Mbak Naning, kalau mau fotonya ditampilkan di sini, please send me your best photo and I will share your photo to everyone in the world. Ya, ini tambahan sedikit lagi. Bapak Ibu sekalian, satu hal yang sering kita lupakan ini adalah memasukkan extensive reading, extensive listening di kurikulum pelajaran bahasa. Bahasa apapun, termasuk bahasa Indonesia. Bahasa Indonesia menjadi program literasi nasional itu ya, gerakan literasi nasional itu gerakan membaca sebetulnya. Belajar bahasa itu seperti itu. Ya, membaca. And this is a very good approach, but not very often used. It's underutilized. Begitu. Yeah. If you're thinking about how you can get materials, relevant, interesting materials, reading materials, extensive reading materials for your students, I would like to share with you a digital library called X Reading. It has more than 2,000 graded readers, easy reading materials that the students can read, the students can enjoy. And this program, or this digital library, has been used by a number of countries in the region: Japan, Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, termasuk diantaranya UNESA, UMY, Atmajaya, Unmul, UNM, dan a number of other universities. So I would encourage you to make use of this digital library to get your students to be immersed in the language by doing a lot of reading, by doing a lot of listening in a way that is pleasurable, in a way that is interesting. Begitu ya. Yang terakhir ini, just give me just 5 minutes and I'm done with it. So the first one again is what is proficiency? And the second one is why proficiency is important. And number 3 is how to improve your teacher's proficiency or our students' proficiency. And number 4, ini penting sekali untuk BRIN juga, how to do research in this area. If you believe that proficiency is important, then I think we need to set aside some resources, funding, personnel to help the Ministry of Education, to help the schools in Indonesia to understand better what proficiency is all about. Yang pertama adalah mapping teacher proficiency in Indonesia. Sudah ada datanya di beberapa tempat, termasuk yang tadi itu dari Versant. British Council juga punya data, tapi secara nasional kita belum. We do not have a national database about the proficiency level of Indonesian English language teachers. Belum ada. Number 2, this is another big project for BRIN, designing CEFR-based proficiency tests for students and teachers in Indonesia. Belum ada. Yang sering dipakai adalah TOEFL dan IELTS. Not the best test, if you ask me. They should not be used for measuring general level of proficiency of our students or our teachers. Kurang pas, tidak pas sama sekali. Yang ketiga, I think you can look at the curriculum. The school curriculum, English school curriculum, and also the curriculum at the teacher education programs, di tempat-tempat teacher education universities. Yeah, and you can sort of examine if there is a good match between the curriculum and the proficiency goal that they're trying to get the students to achieve at the end of the program, for example. Satu lagi adalah pentingnya exit proficiency test untuk pre-service teachers. Ini belum ada ini. Ya, jadi kemampuan calon guru itu mestinya seperti apa sebelum mereka masuk di tempat pekerjaan sebagai guru bahasa Inggris. Yeah, the good universities, I think they have some sort of standards, but the majority of teacher education universities, they don't have that standard. Ya, kadang-kadang semuanya lulus begitu ya, tanpa ada screening before they finish their studies. So that is something that you might want to examine, that you might want to look at. Dan yang ketiga, yang keempat mungkin adalah, what if we do extensive reading? What if we include a very strong element, a very strong component of extensive reading and extensive viewing program in the school curriculum? Give it a try and see what happens. Yeah, the reason I'm saying this is that we have tried different ways of teaching. Kurikulum yang sebelumnya apa ya namanya, Mbak Rani? Kurikulum apa namanya? Kurikulum sebelum kurikulum Merdeka.
Curriculum 13, yeah.
Ya, 2013.
Yeah, I think it's curriculum 13, yes. 2013.
Okay. Yes, I think we have tried different curriculums. I don't think we have been very successful in raising the proficiency level of our students. Kurikulum Merdeka itu juga baru tahap-tahap awal ya. I think I am quite positive about Kurikulum Merdeka, tapi kurikulum yang memakai genre-based itu kok saya kurang pas begitu ya. Please ask me, and I'll be happy to have a discussion about curriculum, the genre-based approach to language teaching, yang kayaknya kurang pas betul begitu. Yeah, let's have a discussion on that afterwards. Bapak Ibu sekalian, ada 4 hal ya, saya ulang, that we discussed together. today. Number one is what is proficiency? What is proficiency? How to measure proficiency? And more importantly, why proficiency is important? Yang berikutnya adalah how to grow, how to improve our teachers' proficiency, how to improve our students' proficiency. Dan yang terakhir adalah how to know more, how to do research in this area. I think this area has been neglected for a long time. Gitu ya. Ini yang terakhir. This is a shorter version, hanya 2 halaman. Kalau artikel yang pertama tadi itu berpuluh-puluh halaman, yang ini hanya 2 halaman. So it's a summary of what I'm discussing today with you. It's available in my blog, and the name of my blog is Willy's ELT Corner. The QR code is there right in front of you. Please feel free to have a look and to download it. It's all free. And my blog has a lot of resources for guru-guru bahasa ataupun siswa-siswa yang sedang belajar bahasa Inggris. Bapak Ibu sekalian, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Willy. There are some inputs for us this morning. We have a dynamic program lineup, and we encourage you to actively participate in the discussion. Let's work together to empower language in education. We are going to the next session to discuss or interactive with the speakers. In this session, I invite all of the participants to directly interactive with the speakers. And Mr. Willy, Ibu Ade Mulyana, and Ms. Naning Triwahyuni are ready for you all.
Direct questions are better.
Okay. Okay, please.
But maybe we can answer the question coming up on the chat room, I guess. Yes.
I start from the raise hand one, maybe one opportunity, and then back to the chat. Okay. Bu Yulia Fitrina, please.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Bese, moderator, for the opportunity. Okay, the discussions from the speakers about foreign language teaching or foreign language learning is truly fascinating. There is something I would like to ask from all the presenters regarding to their experiences, specifically the case studies they have encountered. Okay, at first I would like to ask Ms. Nani. Okay, Miss. Based on your experience, what are the differences in characteristics between students in Australia and students in Indonesia in terms of cultural background? How do you approach them? And then the second question I want to direct to Mrs. Ade. Additionally, as an experienced teacher in BIPA, Indonesian Language for Foreigners, I'm curious about the most intriguing case studies from your teaching experiences, how you navigated cultural differences in the classroom, what challenges and successes have you encountered in the process of language instructions. Next, and for all the 3 speakers, the third question will be directed to Dr. Willy. There are some variation of English like British English, American English, or Indian English. There are also different extent of using English. My question is, as a person who wants to gain a good proficiency in English, should we master all of the style or the action? And what are the advantages to master of the style and actions? Okay, thank you. All that's Mr. Bese. Thank you.
Thank you, Bu Yulia Fitrina. I just limited the interactive at first session for 2 participants. Mr. Sriono, please.
Okay, thank you very much for giving me the chance. Saya ingin bertanya kepada Pak Willy. Beside the factors of ability and faktor abilitas dan 2 faktor tadi, knowledge and ability, is there another factor, something like psychological method? Have you ever made research concernings about the psychological matters that impact to the lack of proficiency of Indonesian English teacher. Begitu ya Pak Willy ya?
Yeah.
Oke. Kemudian untuk Ibu Naning, Ibu terima kasih sekali presentasinya sangat menarik. Thank you very much for your presentation, and I think this is good presentation. One thing that I want to ask you adalah bagaimana kita mengkreasi, how we create a sense of accomplishment to our student. Bagaimana kita mengcreate itu, how to create a sense of accomplishment to our student. Karena ini satu hal yang penting. It is one of important thing that some learner to achieve while they are in learning process. Oke. Dan untuk Ibu Ade, Ibu, saya pernah punya pengalaman mengajar di wilayah Pasifik. I've got an experience about teaching in Pacific area. In PIPA, we usually met a situation in which the variations of our student backgrounds, motivations, and ability, how to cope the problem with this kind of condition, Ibu Ade. Ya, saya kira itu saja pertanyaan yang saya tanyakan. Thank you very much for giving me the chance to ask directly to the professional English teacher. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Mr. Sriyono. And then I do hope you may be patient. Bu Jusmi Antigari, maybe the next session for interactive and just limited for two participants to ask, and then time for the speakers to answer from the questionnaire. Maybe the first time for Miss Naning.
Okay. Hang on. I think I already. Right. Hang on. So the first question is like, what the difference in terms of characteristics of students who live in Australia, Indonesia, maybe like based on my experience in the UK and New Zealand as well. Is that the question, right? The question,
Yes.
right? Okay. So I think I was dealing with Indonesian students, even though I was living overseas. Primarily, I was dealing with Indonesian students in the community, so teaching in the community. I also taught in some primary or like a preschool in New Zealand, yes, but it's not AFL learners, not English learners. It's different story. So we limit our context on EFL learners who live in Indonesia and also who live in overseas that consider native environments, because like Australia, UK, and New Zealand is a native English, right? Most of people in there are speak English speakers. So I think the most characteristic of student is influenced by the environments, because there are English exposure in there. Unlike in Indonesia, most exposure is in school. But in overseas environment is a highly exposure in English. So they also may consider English is not a foreign language, but a second language, or maybe even a primary language, because a student, especially children, they speak English more even though they are Indonesians when they live in overseas. Even though their parents still speak English, speak Indonesian maybe at home, but they most likely will answer in English. That's the case of my children as well. So it's more like some influenced by the environment. So they will more adapt in terms of culture, because culture also influence the speed of learning the languages as well, right? And then exposure, because they will acceleration. And I think because the environments of native speaker is more open. Sometimes there is a culture constraints in Indonesia, right? Not every community in Indonesia adopt English nicely. Even some community against the language. That influence the attitude also on the learners and speeding up process. So the open environments, the conducive environment, of course, make the students more open and speeding up the process as well. I think it's kind of and so they more confident as well. You know that developed countries, the way in their educations, the way in their curriculum also, they are more critical. So they build critical thinking, especially in younger students, primary students. Unlike Indonesia, we have so many materials, yeah, so many materials. So we are like running, galloping for mastering many materials in our learning every day and at school. But in there, it's more like critical. So they will be open-minded, they will be more immersed, and they will be more, I think, speeding up the process. I think that's of my answer. Maybe there is still questions.
Thank you. That's
Yeah.
makes me satisfied. That
Yeah.
one that I was say emphasize that in Aussie or in New Zealand, it's more but say open, frankly speaking.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, compared in Indonesian.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Like
And they speak
debate.
more, yeah. They speak
Like
more.
debate.
So,
Like debate. Like debate.
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Nani, for your experiences. It's very
And
appreciated.
they said additional language. So English as additional language. English as additional language is different with English as second or foreign language. English as additional language is for usually that term actually coined by an expert of linguistics from Oxford University. What is her name? I forget about that. Additional language is kind of, they speak English as additional language because they live in English, but they are not native speakers. So additional language.
Or the first meeting, you have a shock culture.
Yeah, of course, you have shock culture. But children adapt quicker than adults. Even then, their pronunciations will be much better than adults. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, thank you. I think enough, Miss Yulia. I think enough, and time for Ma'am Ade to answer the question from interactive.
Thank you very much, Mbak Bise, for the question. It's a very interesting question, and also I included the question from the chat room. Actually, the three questions from Bu Yulia, and also I take from Bu Ratma from the chat room, and also from Pak Sriono. Okay, might be the first question is quite a bit challenging. The question is whether the teaching English is how is the difference between teaching English and teaching BIPAC? I might be share the idea from my own experience. Teaching English, both are challenging. I say it is not easy teaching foreign language, but when I teach English, it's mostly not easier, but it's kind of significant to understand that we teach something to do with the culture. We talk about that Indonesian culture come from the low contact culture, and English people from high contact. Indonesian people from high contact culture, and English people from low contact culture. So understanding the cultural backgrounds is kind of leading us to find out how we make a teaching strategy to teach the student about the two differences. And understanding the backgrounds of English and Indonesian language influence how they communicate, including the pragmatic, polite strategy, social hierarchy, and also discourse style they're going to do. And teaching English as foreign language for Indonesian, we're supposed to understand how the background of the culture itself, that most of the people from low contact culture, based on a whole of Hofstede theory, it could be one of the reference you can use, that we have to give the understanding for Indonesian student when we do English for foreign language teaching, that they are more direct. They do a lot of they're less formal when the communication is a part of the English culture. So what we have to do is either teaching English or teaching Indonesian, understanding the backgrounds of the source language culture is very important. But I think the most significant part is how you understand the backgrounds of cultural context. It is for English culture. And for Indonesian, when I teach Indonesian language teaching for foreign speaker, I teach in Australia, in two state in New South Wales and also in Victoria. It's also challenging because how deal with the understanding about Indonesian culture. But again, I should tell you that when I teach, like most student is not variety, like what Pak Sriono asked. It's a lot easier because I can say that the cross-culture awareness just take from the both side of the culture. And when I have to teach one class, navigating the class, which has a variety of students, is another more things about the challenges. For example, when I teach the Koreans, German student, also Japanese, we have to understand the different kind of culture by pointing that the source language is Indonesian, and how we navigate the class, we have to ask the question about the difference between Indonesians and English culture and Indian culture. For example, most of German students they may struggle with indirect refusal in Indonesian, saying that we have appointment. And sometimes there is another way of strategy by Indonesian where when they are not really hard, they're hard to say no, and they give texting them by doing WhatsApp, for example. And the learner tried to find out whether the appointment will be approved by Indonesian. They find out that the WhatsApp is never read by their friends. It's like indirect refusal. Sometimes Indonesian just like hard to say no. So the strategy by doing indirect refusal is without giving any answer, whether they can be they can yes or no. And the second thing might be a bit easier, for Japanese students. By addressing people by saying Bapak, Ibu, it's a lot easier for the people from a high contact culture like Japanese, Koreans, because we do have similar kind culture background. And by doing like hierarchy speech level, for example, they can say Bapak and Ibu is a bit easier for the people from Japanese and Koreans. But might be for English culture, it's a bit hard to understand why there is the difference between somebody from older, different profession or kind of different levels of social hierarchy. And the second thing that when we do something to do with teaching pragmatic, for example, it's very significant when we have to give the material to pragmatic. For example, how to speak politely in Indonesian and how to speak politely in English. Most of Indonesian might be to do politely by saying something related by using if I quote Brown-Levinson theory, might be I can say that might be using the term or addressing or title by using Bapak or Ibu is the most significant. And sometimes a bit confusing when other, using another pronoun by using Anda, for example. But in English might be a lot easier because when you address the people that higher level or might be older than you, it's a lot easier because the pronoun just using you, for example. But different choice of word, where I say would you like to, or will you, kind of example. So the kind of strategy might be it's really important for the teacher to understand the kind of strategy because the type of related to politeness, related to honorific, and related to the different of the two culture is, I think, it's very important when they have to understand the type of differences. So the question from Pak Sriono, I guess, is quite the same, because how we deal with the student, how we navigate the class from Pacific, like Pacific things, from PG Island, Solomon Island. I think the strategy is use Indonesian as the central. What we have to do is we give the audience or the student or the learner about information about Indonesian culture, and the rest of it we give kind of material that's they make reflective journal by giving cross-culture, cross-culture understanding about Indonesian culture and also their own culture. So a lot easier for us to understand by own learning, by using reflective journal, because doing reflective journal we can understand that from Indonesian side and their own and then learner side. So I think the variety of student makes the classroom is more more various, because we can see we can find different kind of knowledge about culture competent from the student perspective. Thank you. I think that's the answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mom Ade. Maybe it is a comprehensive explanation to answer the question from two participants, and also answer the question from the chat directly from Imelda. Due to the various ethnic and culture in Indonesia, how do we manage these issues in teaching, and to what extent do we choose a certain culture value? And then also have answer about how can the inclusion of cross-cultural aspects in English language learning enhance students' understanding and appreciation of cultural diversity in Indonesia. And also from any Ayu, what kind different of culture context between English and Indonesian language if compared to their cultural background? And then what should BIPA teachers do to deal with learners' culture background in terms of cultural cross-cultural understanding in foreign language teaching from Ratnawati, and the last from Dedi Ari Asfar. In the context of globalization, how can cross-cultural awareness be effectively integrated into foreign language education without the risk of replacing or diminishing local cultural values? I think all of the explanation from Mom Ade recently have enough to answer the questions. And then we move to Mr. Willy, or due to my cultural understanding, Pak Willy, you may answer to questionnaire, and then
yes, very brief response to Pak Yono. Pak Yono,
Pak Yono,
yes,
okay.
Pak Yono, can you have your video on, please? Pak Yono, are you still there?
Yes, sure. I'm sorry.
Yes, camera on, please.
Camera on, Mas Riono.
Really sorry, opening the camera because something related with my signal.
Okay.
Really sorry.
Okay, not to worry. Yes, Mas Yono, your question has to do with the emotional aspect, with the psychological aspect of language learning.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes. Okay, let me answer your question by asking Pak Kolom. Pak Kolom, is it easy or difficult to learn English? Pak Kolom? Easy, right?
It's not difficult. Indonesian is not difficult either.
Indonesian is easy. Yes. Now, I'm serious. People, if you ask me whether learning a new language, apapun bahasa yang kita pelajari, apakah itu sulit? Jawaban saya, my answer is no, it's not. It's not difficult. What you need is investment in terms of time. Nomor satu, you need quite a bit of time. You need to set aside time, at least 1 year. On a daily basis, spend half an hour a day for 1 year. I am sure if you do the right thing, like what I suggested earlier on, I think you should be able to acquire quite a bit of language. You should be able to get to maybe B1 after 1 year of doing this. If you spend another year, I think you should be able to get to B2. It is not difficult. And let me share with you hasil survei yang dilakukan di Jepang untuk siswa sekolah di Jepang. Ini penting sekali karena kemampuan siswa di Jepang itu juga tidak terlalu bagus sebetulnya dalam kaitannya in relation to belajar bahasa Inggris. Survei itu bertanya begini, mata pelajaran apa di sekolah yang Anda anggap sangat penting? Nomor 1, bahasa Inggris. Interesting, isn't it? Bahasa Inggris is understood, is perceived to be an important subject. Ya, itu yang pertama nih. Yang kedua, Pertanyaan yang kedua, the second question, mata pelajaran apa yang paling Anda tidak sukai? Yang paling atas apa? Bahasa Inggris, begitu loh.
Yeah.
Bahasa Inggris. Jadi there's a problem here. It's not about motivation ya, tidak ya. It's not about motivation. They understand the importance of bahasa Inggris. But for some reasons, they don't like studying, they don't like learning English in the classroom. Kira-kira apa ini sebabnya ini? Why? Why are they not having a good time learning English in the classroom?
Maybe it's not fun, sir.
It's not fun exactly because it's so boring. It's so uninteresting. And the teachers spend a lot of time explaining, menjelaskan tata bahasa, explaining text structure, explaining genre types, explaining how to tell a joke. I think that's the biggest joke to me. Teaching students how to tell a joke. You don't teach students how to tell a joke. If they know the language, they can tell a joke. You don't have to tell them, okay, a joke is a certain type of genre, and you have to begin by this move and things like that. So that to me is one of the reasons why the students don't enjoy learning atau belajar bahasa Inggris, because we are not doing a good job as a teacher. Our lessons are boring, our lessons are not interesting, our lessons are not engaging at all, and we focus too much on knowledge, bukan kepada ability. And we know that it is the ability that we want to focus on, helping students to learn, to acquire the ability to communicate, to speak in the language. And we know from research that the best way to learn, to develop that ability, itu bukan dengan pelajaran tata bahasa di kelas, tidak. Pasti tidak. So we've been doing the wrong thing. Pak Yono, if you ask me, belajar bahasa itu tidak sulit. Butuh waktu, butuh semangat, butuh komitmen, butuh motivasi. If that motivation is not there, then there's not much that you can do.
One more thing question that hasn't been answered yet, Pak Willy, tentang sense of accomplishment.
Oh yeah, that's part of motivation, isn't it? That's part of motivation. If the students experience a lot of failure, ngerjain soal salah, diberi homework gak bisa, ujian hasilnya jelek, begitu. If that keeps on happening, their sense of achievement is gone. They feel that I'm a failure. Why should I try again? Again, I would blame, minta maaf nih, I would blame the curriculum. I would blame the teachers for not doing a good job. Yeah, I think we can do better. But the starting point should be, belajar bahasa itu tidak sulit. Belajar bahasa butuh komitmen. Belajar bahasa butuh setahun minimal. Begitu. And you should make the lesson interesting, enjoyable, engaging, and all the rest of it. I think that is the way to go. Pak Kolom, agree? Yes, Pak Kolom, please nod your head. Please say yes.
100%, Pak Willy.
100%, yes. Yes.
Okay, Pak Willy. I think enough, Mr. Sriono and Bu Yulia. And then it is also directly from the the explanation have answered the question from the chat from Naning about English has become an international property now, not only owned by native speakers, considering it is spoken internationally. So share your insight on the implications, perspective, and possibilities in the future. And then from Nani Lisawati, I'm a teacher of craft in senior high school. There are some vocab in culinary in my subject. So I always say this is the other word in English. Please ask the English teacher for right pronunciation. Although I tried, so this is maybe a problem for English proficiency. And then I still one from Pandu Perdana. There is a saying that if a person wants to be good at speaking, he should listen. If he wants to be good at writing, he should read. Could you explain the connection between reading and speaking, specifically in terms of proficiency and fluency? And then, what do you think about the statement that the fluency of language based on the habit? How about the person who have no good environment to make his or her more fluent?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, just a quick response. I think very often we put the blames on things that are really not related to the the process of language learning. Very often we blame our mother tongue because our first language is like this. That's why it has a bad influence on the learning of the second language. So I think we should stop doing that. Our first language is a treasure. I think we can make use of our first language to learn another language. I don't think that should be a big issue for most people. When the students are not doing well in class, do not blame the students. Blame us because we have not done a good job. I remember somebody mentioning this a while back, asking about the best way to motivate our students. What is the best way to motivate our students? The best way, he says, is to change the way we teach, to make sure that what we teach is relevant, what we teach is interesting, that what we teach is useful for the students. Keep that in mind. It's us, yeah. If we are able to do that, I think chances are higher that your students will become more interested, they will become more motivated, they will work harder, they will spend a lot more time, both in the classroom and more importantly, outside the classroom. So that will be my response to that. Stop blaming our mother tongue. Our mother tongue is wonderful. Whether you speak Bahasa Jawa or Bahasa Indonesia at home, treasure that. Do not blame our mother tongue. Gitu ya.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Willy. I think enough to answer all the questions from the chat, and then we still have 2 minutes for just Mianti Garing and Pak Calm Downs. And let me invite first just Mianti Garing.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear my voice?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm just Mandy Garing from Research Center for Language Literature and Community Brain. Yeah, I think all of the presenters today informed to us a new knowledge or insight about the learning or education in Indonesia specifically. Well, my question, actually, I have 3 questions. My first question is going to Bu Naning. My question is, how can classroom-based research support professional development and improve teaching quality in Indonesia? Because in your slide, you inform us about classroom-based research helps teachers improve their teaching by analyzing their practice and student learning. Then I guess that educators can find effective strategy and enhance learning experience by reflecting on their teaching. Thus, my point is, how can classroom-based research support professional development and improve teaching quality, in particular in Indonesia right now? Yeah, that's the first question, and then the
Simple
second
question,
one goes to
simple question, maybe just Mianti.
Okay. The second question goes to Bu Ade. My question is, how does cross-cultural awareness influence the teaching of foreign language in Indonesia and increasing global interaction? Because we know that globalization and Indonesian growing role in international education right now, especially in language teaching, requires linguistic competence and cultural awareness. So what is your opinion? And the last question is going to Pak Willy. As we know, the English proficiency in Indonesia remains a critical issue, as you informed to us previously that English proficiency in Indonesia, I'm not mistaken, in the A2 level right now, isn't it? So my question is, what are the key challenges and prospects, in your opinion, to improve English language proficiency in Indonesia? That's my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jusmianti Garin. And then the last participant to give a question by raise hand. Pak Kol, silahkan.
Thank you very much, Ibu. I'll try to keep it brief. I wanted to make a comment and ask a question, or really pose a challenge to Bryn. I first just wanted to say this has been a fantastic webinar in which a very wide variety of very important issues have been covered, from cross-cultural integration to language proficiency. I want to make 3 comments on both very briefly, and then I'll end with a challenge. My comment on kind of intercultural competence, which is incredibly important, I wanted to say that Indonesia is the most diverse country possibly in the world, and students here have incredible intercultural competence just by the fact that people in Indonesia are very comfortable in talking in different languages. I think everybody here is multilingual. There's a fantastic kind of strength, that kind of unity through diversity. So that can be celebrated. But I do also at the same time feel that Indonesians lack that similar kind of confidence at an international level overseas. So hopefully we can champion your own intercultural competence. The second thing I would say is I think it's vitally important to understand differences. It's very useful. It can be dangerous if we focus on stereotypes, but it's very important that we understand the kind of differences. But I would equally add that understanding our similarities is what helps us to build relationships, build friendships. So let's make sure that we do that. And a practical thing that we can do in English language classrooms, now that we have the technology, we can have these kind of virtual meetings in the country or internationally, where we can invite students from different countries to talk to our students in English. We can learn about each other. This is increasingly happening in English language lessons around the world, and it's something that could happen here. On assessment, just the 3 points I wanted to make very briefly. One is in terms of policy. Pat Willie's talked about the importance of English language proficiency standards. I despair. I'll be very honest. I'm a freelance consultant now. The time is now for a ministry or ministries to be brave enough, in my view, to start to set meaningful standards, to become an English language teacher in Indonesia, to finish your teacher certification program, PPG, pra jabatan, dalam jabatan. Why don't you need to demonstrate a language proficiency in order to get that certificate and get paid more money?
I agree. Yeah.
This is the biggest thing I would say. And the fact is, why hasn't it happened before? It's because testing is difficult. It's hard. But now it's much easier. We can make use of technology to have efficient, accurate testing. So let's make use of technology, embrace these kind of accurate tests. And hopefully, I think these tests could help us improve the current, let's be honest, widespread use of like TOEFL Lite or PT-SOL. These tests serve their purpose, but now we can do more than test grammar and vocabulary. We can test all 4 skills. And I would say kind of my final point on that is, in terms of thinking about Bryn, is that this use of technology can help us to gather, as I think Pat Willie said, a lot of more data. Already there was Pat Willie was reporting on data that had been collected by Pearson. My question, as an outsider, as a foreigner, even though I've lived in Indonesia, and I wanted to say, this webinar has been fantastic. I still find it confusing sometimes. Who is responsible for what in terms of the ministries and institutions in Indonesia when it comes to English language policy, teacher professional development at a national level, at a regional level, at a local level, how the different institutions and ministries work together in that area, specifically on English language teaching. I think that lots of people are doing tremendous work, but I hope that is accurately and clearly shared with all of the international organizations that want to support Indonesia. Yeah, but fantastic webinar. I'm, as you can see, very enthusiastic and happy to have participated. So thank you.
Thank you, Pak Ko. This is the last participant to give sharing ideas and opinions for our webinar today. And then because we have a limited time and we still have only 3 minutes for all speakers, so 1 minute for one speakers. The first for Miss Nanning, please giving answer and then closing for your statement today in 1 minute, please. You still mute, Bu Nanning? Yeah.
Right. Okay, I'm gonna straightforward. Yeah, 1 minute only. So a classroom-based research, it helps empower teachers, right, to become active problem solver. You are a researcher. You're not only teaching. You understand your student needs. You understand individual needs. So you are observing, analyzing, refining your methods based on the student needs, and then you also can create dynamic, engaging, responsive learning environments based on your research as well. So, and then you learn theory, right? And as a teacher, you learn theory, and then you apply that in the classroom. But there must be challenge as well in there. So you can redefining the theories. You can see the implementation of the theories, and then you make a chart, and then you make a map. What you should do, what makes my teachings can be better. Self-reflections. And then also strengthening assessment and feedback method. For example, like me, I'm doing instruments developments in assessing student interest and motivations. By doing that research, I can monitor students' interest and development fluctuation, and then I can learn what makes them what makes their interest improve, what makes their motivation improve, and then apply to my teaching. So basically just like that. So you're observing, analyzing, and make a better of your teachings by your research. Is that enough to answer the questions?
Thank you, Miss Nanning. We move to Mom Ade Mulyana. 1 minute for you, Mom.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, a minute answer, right. Okay, thank you for the questions. Yeah, challenging question from Bu Umi and Pak Kolum, I guess. One thing that might be, it really interests me much about the question, and also the, given by the Asbar about what best cultural awareness in language teaching in globalization. So I guess my point of view, in globalization related to foreign language education, cross-cultural awareness, I think that should be integrated without erasing the local cultural values. That's my point of view. So what we have to do, by using comparative, pluralistic, and also reflective teaching, especially reflective teaching method, I guess, yeah. Learner can develop intercultural competence while maintaining their own cultural identity. So what the best way we can do here, in my point of view? So first, we have to teach culture comparison instead of culture dominant. Not doing which one is better, which one is not really less better. I think that's the most important part. The second, I think that what you have to do is using local culture as reference when teaching foreign language concept. And the third is, I think, yeah, encouraging pragmatic flexibility rather than complete cultural assimilation, I guess. Yeah. And the next thing, in my point of view, is we have to challenge stereotypes, yeah, and promote a diverse cultural perspective. And the most important part when we think about globalization related to integrating culture in Indonesia, we have to be able to foster transcultural identity rather than replacing local identity. That's my point of view. And the second question from Pak Koln, I guess, is this like the comment? It's really wonderful comment, I guess, yeah. So we can talk about we make discussion maybe in Pak Koln, yeah, in the next time. But might be one thing that I do agree about cross-cultural communication is that cross-cultural communication, or we call ICC, whatever it is. So I think I really believe that it's a process of exchanging information, ideas, meaning between individuals from different cultural background. So I think that it involves understanding, negotiating, and adapting to cultural differences in common style, value, belief, and worldwide. So in bring context, that's your question very challenging. So what we have to do in the BRIN context, of course, that we are dealing with 718 local language in Indonesia. So what we have to do related to cultural integration. So the first thing that I think, whether we have to be specific in one culture for certain, ethnic group, or we have to think in global perspective. So my point of view, whether we have we are multicultural and multilingual country with 718 local language, but we have to do that. We are Indonesian, and based on whole and hope state that we are one in, we call so-called the country which has high contact culture. That's what my point of view. So
Thank you.
yeah, the time is up, right? Okay. Okay. So maybe we can talk later. There's a lot of things, but related to something to with the research and also communication with other departments. So we do like to talk with a department related to curriculums, with the developments of our research. Yeah. And it's in discussion as well with support to our better understanding about research and come out with the idea to talk with the people from other minister and better to talk about might be with Minister of Education and Culture. Yeah, we talk about this. Okay, thank you, Mbak Bese. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mom Ade, and directly to giving time for Mr. Rui. 1 minute for you to giving answer, and then closing statement for your for the all participants in the webinar. Please.
I just need half a minute, and that will also be my
Okay.
closing. That
So
will also
simple.
be my
Thank you.
closing statement. Sentence number 1, referring back to what Pak Kolom says about technology. Let us organize another webinar on technology and invite Pak Kolom and some other experts in this area to explore, to discuss how technology can be productively integrated in our teaching, in getting our students to to learn more about the culture, to learn more about the English language. Number 2, which is also my other closing statement, is this: teachers, if you're in the audience, please teach less. I think we teach too much in the classroom. We spend too much time talking, explaining things to our students. Our students do not need a lot of explanations about the grammar of the language. What they need is to understand the grammar, to experience the grammar, to feel excited about reading interesting materials. Now, here's my take. If the students find something that is interesting and they understand the story that they are reading, that they are listening to, they also understand the grammar of the language as well. Yeah. And if that enjoyable grammar learning or story reading or story or listening to stories is happening repeatedly over 1 year, for example, the students will have acquired a lot of grammar. So speak less, teach less, and let the students learn more in the process. And that will be my closing statement. I think we tend to over-teach. Yeah, language is a skill. It's not something that requires detailed explanation. The moment you start explaining things in detail, I think you are doing the wrong thing. You're not helping your students.
Okay, thank you very much,
Terima
Mr.
kasih.
Willy. Thank you very
Matur
much,
nuwun.
Mr. Willy. I think that's all. The question, the answer from the speaker is it enough for participants? So I just highlight for things important for us from Mr. That what is proficiency, why proficiency is important, how to improve proficiency, and how to reset proficiency. And the last is how to reset proficiency is homework for brain and to raising the proficiency bar of a research proficiency. Thank you very much. I will back to the master of ceremony.
Thank you, Ms. Bese. Dear attendant, I would like to remind you to fill the registration form. Kindly please find the registration link in the chat box. Finally, we have passed our decision. On behalf of the Research Center for Language, Literature, and Community, Research Organization of Archaeology, Language, and Literature, National Research and Innovation Agency, BRIN, we would like to deliver our sincere gratitude to Speaker Dr. Willy Randia, Naning Triwahyuni, PhD, and Ade Mulyana, Master of Humanity, and all participants. For your kind attention, we would like to apologize for inconvenient nature during the webinar. Good day, selamat siang, dan thank you, terima kasih.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Bu
you.
Abhi.
Thank you very
Thank you very much,
much.
Pak Willy.
Thank
Pak
you,
Kom,
very
thank you.
much.
Mr.
Terima
Thank you,
kasih,
Bu Naning, for being
everyone.
here, hoping that
Bu
we can
Ade.
catch up later. Thank
Thank
you
you
very
very
much.
much,
Thank you
everyone.
very much for
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you, Pak Willy.
See you,
Thank you,
Pak.
sir.
Very
Bye.
insightful.
Yeah.
Bye.
Very good.
Thank you, Pak Willy, Pak Kom, and other from the group, all the
Participants,
speakers.
thank you
Thank you
so
for
much.
all.
Yes.
Thank you all the
Thank
presenters.
you, Pak
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Willy.
Next webinar on site, not online.
Yes,
Exactly.
In Jakarta.
Hopefully we can do that. Yeah. Hopefully we can do that.
In Jakarta.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Next time you come in Jakarta, Pak Willy, because we are planning to have another seminar on in the middle of March. Hopefully you can catch up here.
Oh, very good. Yes.
Well,
Let's,
Thank you
well,
very
yeah.
much, Pak Willy, for being here.
Thank
Thank you
you.
we're
very
waiting
much.
for your coming, Mr. Willy,
Yes.
and Mr. Kom.
Yes, Pak Kolm as well. I think he's a very good speaker.
That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, Pak Kom. See you later, Pak Kom. I contact you later. Yeah.
And also Pak
Yeah.
Buyung for next webinar.
Yes, Pak Buyung is also another expert in ELT.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye, bye, bye.
Oke, host tinggal.
Semuanya.